Hi Math 60, this is Allison, your instructor, and I wanted to make a video this week about section 2.2, just a few things that I thought maybe weren't explicitly clear in the Petrello videos. So in this section, you are solving linear equations with one variable, and here are kind of what I think of as the 5 steps to doing that. I do ask that you make note of these 5 steps on your weekly prep sheet. So when you're solving a linear equation, the first thing you're going to do is simplify each side of the equation. So you're going to locate that equal sign, and on the left-hand side, you're going to distribute and combine like terms. You're going to do the same types of moves on the right-hand side. You're going to distribute and combine like terms. Once each side is as simple as it can be, you're going to move all terms with variables to one side and all terms without variables to the other side. And the way you do that moving is with addition and subtraction. The third step is that we will then undo any addition or subtraction, and then we'll undo multiplication and division to finally get that variable by itself. The final recommended step is that you check the result. Now, I admit sometimes the results are a little tricky to check, especially when you have a bunch of fractions involved, but I would recommend, especially on a test, that you do check your answers. All right, so here's our first example. We're going to look to solve 13x minus 3 times the quantity 2 plus 5x equals negative 30 minus 10x. Go ahead and pause it right now if you need to write all that down and make sure you get your signs right. All right, now the first move we need to do is find that equal sign. That equal sign is what separates the left-hand side from the right-hand side of this equation. I have seen some teachers actually like to put a line down their paper. That line is not required, but if it helps you to stay organized, go ahead and write it so that you can visually see the left and the right-hand sides. All right, now let's go ahead and simplify the left-hand side, and our first move will be to use the distributive property to get rid of those parentheses. Now it looks like we'll be distributing the number 3, but it's actually a little misleading. The number that we will be distributing will be this number negative 3. We have to grab the sign in front of it when we do the distribution. Those signs that we get from performing that distribution will be the signs that we will write on the next line of work. Now, this 13x is not used at all, so that guy is just going to drop pretty much straight down. My handwriting is a little bigger, so I got to scooch it aside. Now, when I distribute this negative 3, I multiply the negative 3 to the positive 2. That product is a negative 6, so I'm going to write down minus 6. I'm not recopying this negative down. I am writing the sign that I get from the distribution. Now, for the next number, we're doing negative 3 times a positive 5x. Since a negative 3 times a positive 5x gives us a negative 15, we'll write minus 15x. Now the equal sign drops straight down. On the right-hand side, it doesn't look like there's any distributing to do or any combining like terms, so we'll just leave that guy alone. Now, once we distributed, we can go ahead and combine some like terms on each side separately. So on the left-hand side, I see that I have a 13x and a negative 15x. Those will combine to give me a negative 2x. That negative 6 doesn't have anyone to combine with, so he'll just drop down. The right-hand side, again, doesn't have any like terms, so we will simply recopy what we see. Once each side is simplified, we will begin to use our properties of equality to move all of the terms with variables to one side and all of the terms without variables to the other side. So let's start by moving our variable terms. I see a negative 2x on the left-hand side and a negative 10x on the right-hand side. It doesn't really matter which one you move, as long as you use the idea of undoing addition or subtraction, and doing the same thing to both sides. I'm going to choose to move the negative 10x. To undo a negative 10x, I will add 10x to each side. Notice that I lined up my like terms here. Now on the left-hand side, negative 2x combines with positive 10x to give me a positive 8x. That minus 6 just drops straight down. So does the equal sign. Now on the right-hand side, the negative 30 will drop straight down. And the negative 10x and the 10x add together to give us 0x. So we don't write that one down. Now, I have all my x's on the left-hand side. Now we can go ahead and move all of our terms without x's to the right-hand side. So we can take this negative 6 here, and we can add 6 to both sides. Now on the left-hand side, that leaves us with an 8x. The equal sign drops straight down. And negative 30 plus 6 gives me negative 24. All right, last move. We just now need to get rid of this 8 that's in front of the x. Well, that 8 means 8 times x, and to get rid of multiplication, we will use division. So I will divide both sides by 8. Now, 8 divided by 8 gives us 1. So we're looking at, sorry, I'm out of room here. We're looking at an x on the left-hand side in equals. And it looks like negative 24 divided by 8 gives us negative 3. So x is equal to negative 3. Ta-da! Now, if we wanted to do a check step, what we would do is we would take that negative 3 and we would replace the x everywhere in the original equation and make sure the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. All right, well, here's another example of a pretty messy equation. We are going to need to simplify each side of that equal sign first before doing anything to both sides. All right, let's go ahead and find that equal sign. And if it helps, draw that line down to show the left-hand side separated from the right-hand side. Now we're going to begin by doing some distributing. On the left-hand side, it looks like we need to distribute this number 5 to both terms inside those parentheses. So let's go ahead and put those little arches in. Now 5 times negative 6 gives me a negative 30. And 5 times positive 2x gives me a positive 10x. That minus 7 does not get distributed to by the 5 because the negative 7 is not inside the parentheses. So that negative 7 will drop straight down. The equal sign stays right along that red line there, drops straight down. Now on the right-hand side, we have some distributing to do, but we're not going to distribute that 4. That 4 is not being multiplied by the quantity 11 minus 10x. In fact, that 4 is going to drop straight down. What is in front of those parentheses is actually a little invisible negative 1. And it's that negative 1 that we're going to distribute to both terms inside the parentheses. Now, a negative 1 times a positive 11 is a negative 11. Now, this next part is the tricky part. A negative 1 times a negative 10x here is a positive 10x because a negative times a negative is a positive. So really watch your signs. All right, once we've distributed, now on the left-hand side, we're going to look for any like terms. It looks like we have a negative 30 and a negative 7. That 10x is the lonely one this time. So let's write that 10x by itself. I usually write the terms with x's first. And then a negative 30 and a negative 7 combine together to give me negative 37. On the right-hand side, it looks like I've got a positive 4 and a negative 11 that can combine together. And that 10x is the lonely guy here, so we're going to go 10x and then a minus 7. All right, now each side is as simple as it can be. So let's move all the terms with variables onto one side. So on both sides here, I actually have a positive 10x. And to undo a positive 10x, we'll use a negative 10x. Now, what's really interesting here is that that causes us to have 0 x's on either side. On the left-hand side, I get negative 37. On the right-hand side, I get negative 7. Now, negative 37 is not equal to negative 7. This is a false statement. So what that means is that this equation that we worked so hard to solve actually has no solutions. If you don't want to write out the words no solutions, you could actually write what's called the null set or the empty set, which looks like a 0 with a line through it. That just means there are no solutions to this equation. As you're working through your homework, make sure that you are practicing showing neat and organized work. Follow the models that Petrello and I have given you in these examples. You want to make sure that you are showing work going down the page, that you're showing your steps when you're simplifying each side separately, and that you're showing what operations you're performing to both sides of the equal sign when you're using a property of equality. Now, typically you show those property of equality moves underneath the equation. There is one situation when there's fractions involved that you do show it in line, and Petrello did demonstrate that in the multiplication property of equality video, if you want to check that out from section 2.1. I do hope that this helps, and if you have any questions at all, please contact me via email or drop by and see me during an office hour. You can also use the Math Resource Center. There are awesome tutors there that are more than happy to help. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.